and to formally announce our partnership with Boxphish. I'm Cheryl, and I'm joined with James French from the technical support team, along with Jess Peters and Oliver Stace from Boxphish, who will be leading today's session. So what is Boxphish? It's a cybersecurity awareness platform and helps staff spot things like phishing and emails through realistic testing. I'm not going to go into too much detail. I'm going to let Oliver go through all that. But it's one of those systems that becomes regular, it's bite-sized, and it's really simple to use, and something that schools should be aware of. Okay, just a little bit of housekeeping. So your cameras and microphones have been disabled, but we do have the chat available for any questions. If you do want to actually ask the question, you can raise your hand and we'll enable your microphone and you can then ask away. So I just want to give a little bit of context. So the council's been using Boxphish for a number of years. It's part of our mandatory training. It forms part of our performance review, and it's now embedded across all the staff as a regular task that we must do. The screenshot you're actually seeing is from my own June Boxphish that was done a little while ago from my own e-learning platform. Each month, every staff completes a short bite-sized video. It's quick, it's really easy to use and very straightforward, and it fits in. It doesn't take any time at all. And more importantly, we know that the council has seen results in all the staff using this and being part of our sort of monthly regular tasks. During my years in this team, I've been privy to cyber attacks in schools that we support, and whatever the reason and how the attacker was able to infiltrate, the impact is far-reaching and has caused significant disruption and concern. And in one very severe case, although it took months to happen, some of the data did end up on the dark web. I know that schools take their data protection really seriously and have safeguards in place to respond quickly if anything does happen. And alongside this, the regular staff cyber training really helps reduce those risks even further. And I think it's just making cybersecurity simple, manageable, and effective for what we know is a very busy school environment. Lastly, and because of the partnership, we're able to offer schools a system we already know works well, along with a preferential rate. And of course, you'll have our support and guidance throughout. So I won't go on anymore. I'm going to hand over to Oliver now. Thank you, everyone.
Brilliant. Thank you, Cheryl, and thank you for having us again. Obviously excited to start this partnership and hopefully continue and hopefully support a lot of the schools that you look after as well. Perfect. Let me get into things then. What I want to do just before I get into the portal and show you how that looks from a user and admin side of things, I just want to share a quick PowerPoint just to overview a bit more about Boxphish and the work that we're doing. So let me share my screen now. Hopefully this comes okay for you all. But just while it's loading, so a bit of a background to Boxphish then. So we were established in 2018 and we're headquartered in Leeds. So everything you'll see today, slightly different to what you might find with other vendors, is we focus everything around the UK audience. So phishing simulation templates that we've created are specific to what your staff may see day to day, whether that's around Microsoft emails, Google emails, Teams emails, or those, I don't know, Starbucks, Amazon, Deliveroo, different types of emails that users can come across day to day. And that training approach is also UK specific. So all the training content that I'll show you today is focused to the UK with UK voiceovers, pounds, not dollars. Again, we find that's more engaging for staff that we're training in the UK. So just before we get into things, here's a few examples in terms of organisations we support. But from the education side of things, we support over 1,000 different schools, colleges across the UK, purely just because of that ease of use that Cheryl just mentioned, both for an admin like yourselves, but also users within the portal as well. Training's that short bite-sized approach, so typically a module will be around that 5-6 minute mark, and we'd advise that monthly approach just to keep those users topped up in terms of they always understand those different threats that are occurring, And I think the stat is after 28 days of receiving information, you only retain about 20% of it. So that regular approach in terms of engaging staff with training can be quite nice to keep them up to date with those latest threats, but also hopefully reduce that risk for you as an organisation. In terms of how we support then, so we'll touch on the first 3 points in a bit more detail throughout: the phishing simulations, the training off the back of it, and the reporting side of things for you. What we also have access to within the Boxfish portal is policy management and dark web monitoring. So policy management, essentially we can send out any of your internal policies to the staff the same way as the training. So if there is anything you need to do for a compliance or insurance reason, we're able to evidence who's engaging with those policies that you're sending out. We also have a dark web monitoring tool that essentially we brought in to bolster that awareness side of things. But essentially you're able to understand as an organization what might be out there from posed risks in terms of credentials that might have been leaked, so passwords or emails. And we can go a bit further into that in a bit of a second. As Cheryl alluded to earlier, that ease of use and automation side of Boxfish is really nice. So everything we do as an organization for the support we'd give is that time to value piece there in the middle. So we'll touch on these 8 key areas that help to support that in a bit more detail, but the few that I wanted to pick out is that pre-packaged learning content. Essentially gets you up and running quickly. The trainings, again, is UK focused, short to the point, gives you the ability to send out that training effectively. It can be running in the background alongside those phishing simulation campaigns we can send as well. As Cheryl mentioned, we can also host the training within an e-learning platform or a learning management system via SCORM files. So either you have the ability to use the Boxfish platform, we either sync up with your Active Directory or your Entra if you're a Microsoft house, or if you're Google Workspace if you're a Google house. So users are automatically enrolled to receive the training and simulations. The last thing there that I want to touch on is also that people first approach. Along with the support from the ICT schools team, we also have the ability for you to have a customer success manager. So essentially, any queries, questions that might come in with the portal, you have the ability to go to them. They can then set up a call or help support you with any information you need to ensure essentially that is running as smoothly as it should for you guys as an organization. Perfect. So the first bit I want to touch on is the phishing simulations. So as I mentioned, we have various different types of templates that you can see here. Everything again from those Microsoft, Google style emails, or those more B2C with your Amazon and your Royal Mail, Deliveroo. Again, tailored to the UK audience. So nice and easy for you to be able to understand that the simulations that are going out to staff are specific in terms of what they might need to see day to day. So these are our first stage simulations. So essentially understanding if a user may click on a link within an email. We also have a second stage email, which is purely just to understand how far users are maybe going with phishing emails, whether it is just clicking on that link in the first instance, or are they going on to enter any of their credentials further down the line. Worth noting, we don't store those credentials. It's purely just to see if those users are engaging with those emails. What I do want to note with the phishing emails here, the idea isn't catching out the users. The idea is that we want them to understand straight away those threats, what they missed maybe in that first stage, and how that can be reduced for the organization moving forward. So there's a few options here in terms of what we can do off the back of a simulation. One is we can customize this educational landing page for you. So the likes of London Met University there, it's their branding, logo, colors, all the way throughout. Essentially, that organizational feel to things we find is beneficial for engaging staff again with this training, rather than it's looking like it's coming from a third party Boxfish. So essentially, they have the steps they need to look out for next time, hopefully again, reducing that risk over time for the organization. Two other options we have is one is this hints and tips page on the left. Bit more visual for users to be able to understand what specific steps they needed to take within that email. They're clearly outlined on the left, but essentially it will give them the notifications of you need to check the email domain, hover over the link, check the grammatical errors that may be within that email. Again, hopefully giving them understanding of what they need to look out for next time they may face a phishing email or an email they're not sure might be or not. And we also have a 404 error page. Some organizations like to use this to benchmark the vulnerability to begin with. So users engage with the phishing email. Those ones who unfortunately do can be redirected to this error page. They assume the website or link doesn't work, but you're obviously able to understand in that reporting suite who is engaging and maybe where we need to support a bit more with training. What works quite nicely in the education sector is this automatic course assignment. Look, at Boxfish, we're aware that staff have a certain amount of time they can spend on training a year or a term. So that's what is quite nice with that short bite-sized approach. But this automatic course assignment can be quite nice. So let's say we send out a phishing simulation based on AI, for example, to the users. Anyone who's engaging with it can be automatically then redirected to an AI-based training module or specific module based on that simulation we've sent out. Again, that's quite nice in terms of tailoring that training approach to the users on the specific areas they might be more at risk than others. Again, everyone has different understandings of those cyber threats, different understandings of technology in general, so that ability can be quite nice to just clue them up on those areas that they may need a bit more support with. The last thing I wanted to mention around phishing simulations here is, although we do have that wide variety of different templates that we can send out for you, we also have the ability, if you wanted, to create any of your own simulations. So if there's anything you wanted to replicate maybe internally, I know particularly in education, some schools like to have the ability to create simulations based on an email from an SLT member, an email from HR, maybe an invoice to finance, for example. That can be quite nice to use this add sim section here, which I'll show you later on in the portal. But essentially, it gives you the ability to understand how users are engaging with emails outside of the organization in terms of those maybe Microsoft Teams style emails, or you can replicate anything internal that you might want to. I'll just touch on the training in a bit more detail on one slide, but then I'm obviously keen to get into the portal. But from a user point of view, from Microsoft and Google, they can access training via an email. We send that email via that sync with your Active Directory or your Google Workspace. All users are auto-enrolled. We can disable them if they go on long-term sick, maternity leave again, just so they're not coming back to 10, 15 emails in their inbox. But either they receive that email, they log in via single sign-on, and they can access it on any device as well. So again, as Cheryl alluded to, nice and simple to be able to use the solution in terms of completing that training, moving on with their day, and they've only really spent about 5-6 minutes on that module. As we're aware, if this does load, hopefully, we are the only vendor to have an NCSE accreditation. So essentially, we work alongside the National Cybersecurity Centre to ensure that all the training we're releasing is along or in line with any regulations or guidance they release. We have 3 different styles of training content, which I'll show you in the portal. We have animated, live action, and text-based. The first 2 are primarily used more particularly in the education sector because they can just be slightly more engaging for users rather than that text-based approach. And they're all followed up by a short quiz, a gamified approach, just to maximize that information retention for the user and gives you the peace of mind that, look, we know they've completed this module, they've passed the 80% pass mark, let's say we put 80% on there, so you have hopefully that peace of mind there, understanding and engaging with this training moving forward. Last thing I will mention here, we also have extra educational resources. So things like posters, campaign templates, infographics, these can be good to just build that cultural awareness around your organization. So I don't know, a poster above a kettle in the staff room, in the toilets, these are quite nice just to be able to give that bit more added information to the users in terms of what to look out for within their day-to-day lives in terms of those emails they may be coming across. Last thing here, we also have the ability for any Microsoft houses to have Teams integration. So users can now complete training directly within their Teams app. So they just receive a pop-up notification when that module is due to be completed, and they can access it again on any device and mobile. Perfect. So that's everything I wanted to allude to in that PowerPoint. So let me stop sharing there and I'll jump into the portal. I'll show you a few examples of the training content and then also how it can work from an admin side of things, but also users accessing their training as well. Perfect. Is that coming through okay, hopefully? Any issues, please do let me know, but hopefully that's coming through okay for you all. So again, they can sign in via Microsoft or Google. I'll just sign in with my account. But within here, again, the portal, it can be branded alongside what I mentioned earlier. So your logo can be included top left. You can have your primary, secondary colors throughout. Again, that organizational feel we find is really beneficial for increasing engagement rates with the training. And again, ultimately reducing that risk for you as an organization. So if a user does choose to sign in via that email to complete their training, all they get access to within the portal is the dashboard, newsfeed, and help button. Everything else is accessible for an admin user within the portal. The dashboard, again, nice and simple. They can log in, complete their module within your courses when it pops up. They can revisit any old modules as well, which can be quite nice if, let's say, they've completed a module on phishing. They know they've got a module there that they can revisit. They might have received an email this morning that might be a bit dodgy, let's say, or they want to check in line with that. They can revisit it, check against what they've previously learnt, and then hopefully make the right decision in terms of that email. They can also have the ability to download a certificate of completion as well. Before I go any further, I do want to show you a few examples of the training content. So I'll play an example of the animated and the live action. Again, nice and short and simple, 6 minutes long, includes a short quiz at the end. Typically, it might be a 5 multiple choice quiz. You can also choose that pass mark. So if you maybe want to start with, let's say, 50% and ramp it up throughout your time with Boxphish, you can. Again, you have the ability to speak to your customer success manager and be able to support with that. So let me play a few seconds here. I'm pretty sure the sound should come through. So any issues, please do let me know.
Cybersecurity is the protection of physical technologies and devices, as well as online data, networks, applications, and processes against criminal interference. Strong cybersecurity practices work to reduce the risk and impact of cyber attacks and prevent any external or internal damage to organizational assets. The techniques used by cyber attackers are developing at an alarming rate, resulting in growing concerns around the topic. In the past, the most dangerous cyber attacks involved physically hacking into networks. But these days, it's more lucrative and easier for criminals to take advantage of email communications and cloud-hosted data. For a better understanding of the types of cyber attacks an organization may encounter and the impact they can create, let's look at 3 common tactics.
I'll just stop right there, but hopefully that gives you a good idea.
Quite familiar, Oliver. I think.
Yeah.
I think I've seen something very similar in our
Well, perfect.
in our Boxphish.
Perfect. Perfect. Excellent. So hopefully that does give you all a good idea of that animated style of training content. Again, everyone learns slightly differently, so having the balance in terms of the different types of training content is really nice. So I'll play a few seconds of this live action for you as well.
In this episode, we'll be delving into the world of phishing emails and learning how to spot these deceptive messages that pose a threat to your online security. Now, before we dive into spotting phishing emails, let's understand what phishing is. Phishing is a cyber attack where attackers disguise themselves as trustworthy entities to trick individuals into clicking on links or divulging sensitive information, such as passwords or financial details. Phishing attacks are often carried out through emails, making it crucial to recognise the telltale signs of these deceptive messages. Now, let's explore some common indicators that can help you identify phishing emails. So firstly, senders' email addresses. Check the sender's email address carefully. Cyber criminals often use email addresses that mimic legitimate organisations but contain subtle misspellings or additional characters. Next, generic greetings. Beware of generic greetings like Dear Customer or Dear User. Legitimate organisations usually personalise their emails by using your name. Thirdly,
I'll stop that there again, but again, hopefully gives you a good idea of that live action style. And what's quite nice with that is that you can have the ability to choose what types of training are going out. So let's say you think the school or the organisation will benefit more from those animated style of training content. You could do the approach where you send out maybe 70-80% of that animated, but use that extra 20 or 30% for the live action, just to keep that training refreshed and slightly different for the users to be able to engage with. Just before I go any further through the portal, I also wanted to show you a quick snippet of some of the student training we have. So we have different types of student training for obviously different age groups. But this, again, with the day we're in now, all students are using tech as much as we are. So this can be quite nice to be able to maybe support with completing training as well. We can also set it up where the training is sent maybe in a form time, so they can all complete it together with their form tutor. Again, totally up to you in terms of how that might work in the school. But let me play a few seconds of this student content as well.
Sometimes strangers might try to send you messages online. If this happens, remember: 1. Stop talking to them. 2. Block the person. And 3, tell a grown-up you trust.
Perfect. Nice and short and sweet, but hopefully it gives you a bit of a taste for what that student training can look like. So with that sync with your Active Directory or your Entra or your Google Workspace, that sync happens 1 a.m. every night. So any new starters, leavers are automatically updated as well. So the idea is you're not having to manually create users as an organization. It's syncing in the background, simulations and training are automatically running, and just essentially it's a set and forget solution. So nice and simple for busy teams, small teams that might be in charge of this, and hopefully gives you the ability to focus on those 10, 15 other projects on the go, particularly if you have exams and things like that. So the rest of the dashboard is accessible for an admin. This gives you the ability to search per user to see their completion rates of training, their engagement with those simulations. You also have the ability to filter down different custom date ranges. So you have the ability to look at the last half term, year, academic year, but nice to be able to maybe be a bit granular in terms of the reporting or what you're wanting to look at as an organization. What I will mention is for any of the outstanding courses, we can also send automated reminders for you. So if you wanted to send it a week, a month after, we give you that ability just to maybe give that user the nudge in case they have unfortunately missed that training module. You can understand here those most engaged with simulations from the staff. Again, maybe that gives you the idea they're struggling more with those Microsoft or Google style emails, or is it those Amazon Netflix style? Again, that's nice visually outlined there. And what's quite nice for some organizations or trusts or schools, you have the ability to filter through different teams, line managers, departments, locations, so you can understand which teams are doing better than others in terms of their engagement with those simulations, but also the completion of training courses as well. The news feed here, again, is accessible for everyone in the organization, not just the admins. This ties into the likes of InfoSec magazine and NCSC. So any information that's being released in the space filters into here. Users, if they'd like, they can come into here, understand a bit more about the information or what's going on in the space at the moment. But what's quite nice, some schools do, is they use it in newsletters to the staff just to give them the understanding of, look, it's quite a prevalent thing in the space at the moment. This is why we're completing the training, and hopefully gives them that maybe a bit more of a nudge to complete those modules as well. I've touched on the user basis in a bit of detail already. Again, we can disable users just if they are going on long-term sick, maternity leave, but you can also give different users different access. So within here, we can give a user a tenancy admin access as in access to the whole portal, but maybe you just want an SLT member to have some reporting level access or different department heads, line managers. So with that toggle, you can filter down those different areas and give that user the particular reporting level access you'd like them to have. On-demand level access will also give that user the ability to send out any training or simulations. But again, this can be an automated approach where automatically that training and simulations are set up. But you do have the ability, if you'd like, to jump in as and when to change anything around. Maybe it's a different training module you want to send out, or send out a different simulation as well. As I mentioned earlier with the SCORM files and being able to upload our training content within a learning management system, you can also upload any of your own training content into the portal, again via SCORM files. So if that was something you wanted, maybe there's a particular module or training content you want that's specific to school, you can upload it into here and then we can send it out the same way as our other training. The setting just gives you the ability to go through any information you need, things like that automatic course assignment, one-click courses, course retaking. If they are unfortunately failing it, they can have that pass mark on there, let's say 80%. They will also be redirected to new questions following the quiz if they have unfortunately failed, just to give that ability for you to understand they are engaging with it and not just going, I got this answer wrong, it must be this answer. We actually want them to understand that information they're taking on. What we also have is an API feed functionality as well. So if you use anything like a third-party dashboard like Power BI, for example, and you need your reporting in there for any HR or compliance reasons, we have that API feed. So if that was an area of interest, we can also support you with that as well. And as I mentioned, nice and simple to be able to brand your own portal. You have the ability to up your own logo into here and then change those colors for yourselves. So the key one, obviously, where that training content and where can you see those phishing simulations going out? So within here, you have access to our courses and simulation tabs. Before I go into the journey builder, I just want to filter into these because there's a couple of things that we can do. Again, you have the support from your customer success manager to make this nice and simple. But if you were wanting to have a bit more of a hands-on approach, you can filter into our course section. You can access our library of courses. You can browse all the modules within here. You can also create content packs. This can be quite nice if you are wanting to maybe, or staff have a particular amount of training they need to do. You want to send out maybe 3 modules at the start of every academic year, for example. So if you go into the content pack section here and into packs, you can then create your own pack to send out to users. So let's say you are sending it to your school. Continue. Now you have the ability to filter through our library of training modules, pick the specific ones that might be beneficial. So maybe CEO fraud, essentially drag and drop those ones you'd like in there. Let's say you needed a data protection one and a GDPR in education. So now we've created that content pack. Once you've created it, it will filter back into here, and then we can assign packs to different areas. So if you wanted, you can send it to all users, but you do have the ability with that sync with your Active Directory or your Google Workspace to filter training to different parts of the organization, whether that is SLT needing different training to HR or different groups in the organization, you can then assign that pack. So once I click in here, you can filter to that pack we've just created. Let's say it was this content pack demo. Then you can give it to different groups. Let's say, for example, you are just sending it to the whole company. We can now select that. And what's also quite nice is if for compliance reasons they have to complete these modules every 365 days, you turn on this annual refresh and it will automatically send it to those users 365 days after they've completed that module. So again, hopefully you guys can see that the automation behind this and the ease of use is really nice and simple, and you can set and forget the solution and have it running throughout the school year while you're carrying on with everything you have to do with different terms and build ups to Christmas and things like that. So let me filter into simulations then. Slightly similar in terms of you can filter our different library of phishing simulation templates if you did want to pick specific ones. You can also add your own, as I mentioned earlier. But what we can also do is create collections of simulations. So let's say, for example, you were looking to create a collection of simulations so that not all the staff were receiving the same simulation at the same time. We can set it up where we're creating a bucket of, let's say, 10. We send that to your HR team or your SLT team, so they're receiving different simulations to each other. So they can't just sit next to their friends in the office and go, have you received this? Yeah, I have. That must be a simulation. We want to actually understand how they're engaging with these simulations within the portal. So if I continue there again, same process, drag and drop those ones that are more beneficial. We can then send that out to those users within the Journey Builder. So this is where you'd be able to understand when simulations and training are going out. And there's 2 options here. Either we can use one of our pre-built templates of journeys for simulations and training. Let's say, for example, it's a Microsoft house. You want to look at your year 2 journey, which you're sending out a course and a sim per month. We can move everything from a weekend to a Monday, so staff are receiving everything during work hours. You can then send it to those different groups if needed, but let's say you are sending it to all users. And now you can see a template of what we're sending out each month. So for the next 12 months, you can see exactly when a simulation is going out, when a training module is going out. Again, these are specific to what we're seeing from the NCSE, and they're also that UK approach. So again, nice and engaging and specific to what staff need to understand day to day. So hopefully, again, that gives you guys the good idea of how simple this process can be. And look, from a couple of clicks, I've set up a whole learning journey for those users. Again, as I mentioned, you can create custom areas. So let's say you were wanting to create a custom group. Let's say, for sake of the argument, you're sending it to the SLT team. Continue. Now we have that blank canvas in terms of you can pick specifically when you want to send things out. What we also do quite nicely with some schools and what you can do with your customer success manager is tailor it to term time. So nothing goes out during August, for example. It only goes out while staff are actively working within the school. For the sake of the argument, let's say you wanted to send out that simulation bundle we just created. You can filter through the courses and simulations again. You can choose that manual pre-built template that we have, or you can randomize them. So let's say we've created that SLT bucket there of 8 simulations. So now when we send that out, all users will receive a different type of simulation. Down here in the delivery mode, we can either send it directly to all the users at the same time, but again, you might want to be able to sporadically send them out. So this batch send is quite nice. We can set up a time frame of, let's say, a week. set those core work hours, pause on weekends. So now we're sending out 8 different simulations to that SLT team, and they're all receiving them at sporadic points. So it gives you the ability to understand they're engaging with those emails, how they would come across them day to day, rather than one of their colleagues coming to them and saying, look, I've had this, have you? Once you've added that in, nice and simply, that pops up and you can see that within there. Just before I head into the reporting, we also have this quite nice onboarding pack, or this intro to IT security. Essentially, again, we can customize this. We can have your introduction to the users. Let's say it is that onboarding pack. You can have the head teacher or a managing director, whoever it is, SLT member, to introduce that onboarding pack to the users so they know what they're completing within here. This is 25 minutes long. It includes 5 or 4 different modules. They have the ability to complete those modules, move about their day, and let's say you have that week for onboarding, they have the ability to continue accessing this throughout that time. I will just jump through to the end to also show you what we can include, this Go Fish. So more interactive for the user to be able to understand those specific areas they need to understand within an email. As you're aware, people can come from an organisation or a school where they've done 3 or 4 years of cyber training. They may not have done any before. So this onboarding pack can be quite nice to benchmark and just give that a high level overview of the training they're going to be completing throughout their time. Last section that I do want to show you is the reports. So within here, you get access to 5 different tabs: the summary, simulations, courses, audit report, and metadata. What I will mention is we can also automate the reporting to you. So if there's anything you want to see in particular, maybe those high-risk users in terms of who's clicking on links or general information, we can send that directly to you. So again, that hands-off approach, you're receiving the reporting, you know the training and sims are running in the background, you have the ability to focus on everything else you have to do within your day-to-day. Again, you can filter different parts of the organization, those different timeframes. You also have the ability to generate and export anything as a PDF that you see down here. But the summary just gives you that high-level overview of what the organization is doing. So your risk score, the users within that group or tenancy you're looking at, their engagement with the simulation click rates, their engagement with the training modules, and an average score for that. And then you have that risk score going down by time. This can be particularly nice to evidence to SLT, boards. Look, 12 months ago, we were risk score 5. We're now at a risk score 2. We're clearly helping to reduce that risk for the school in terms of the staff are completing more training, but also they're reducing that engagement with those simulations we're sending out monthly. As I mentioned previously when we were going through the dashboard, you can be as granular as you'd like in terms of the reporting. So in here, you can understand what types of simulations they're engaging with. Are they engaging with that first stage, clicking on that link? Are they then going on to enter their credentials further down the line? Are they engaging at all? Are they reporting them? So if you are a Microsoft house, we can sync up with the Microsoft report button as well. Or we have a Boxphish Outlook plugin, Fish report button. So users can report emails away from their inbox. If it is a phishing simulation from Boxphish, they'll receive a notification saying, well done, you've understood the risks in terms of what to look out for. This is not a risk to you. This was a phishing simulation sent by Boxphish, but they'll also be notified separately if it was a real email. You then have the ability to understand their engagements per month in terms of those simulation clicks. So if you wanted to look at May, for example, and you had to create a board pack around May or an SLT pack, click on that bar and it will filter down to specifically what happened within that month. What's a simulation they engaged with, how they engaged with it, and then these high-risk users here, you can understand who's engaging. If I filter out to May and we go back to that 12-month period, you can understand those high-risk users over time and who maybe is struggling slightly more and might need a bit more support. And again, you have the ability to understand if there are any trends in terms of what department they're in, what location. So nice to be able to evidence that for yourselves as well. You then, if necessary, have the ability to filter location. This metadata type, you can filter different areas for this bar graph, and then you have the activity log of everything you're sending out at the bottom below. Perfect. So from a course side of things, very similarly laid out, so I won't go into too much detail. What I will mention is again, you can filter per month to see the completion rates. Again, this can be changed if you are looking at that half-termly approach for training. And then you can filter individual users. So if you need to look at what Luke's doing, for example, click on his name and it will filter down to everything he's completed from a training side of things. We have an audit report section here, not as pretty as the other ones, but essentially gives you the ability to export that information quickly and efficiently, either as a CSV or Excel. So when you need to evidence that information, you have the ability to do that nice and simply. And the last one we have in here is the metadata. Bit more of a broader overview, but nice to be able to have all those statistics in one table. So if you do need to evidence that, you have the ability there to do so. And again, we can automate this to you as well. So that's pretty much everything I wanted to go through the portal here. Again, if you were looking to have that dark web monitoring access as well, you can access that via the portal. You'd receive a notification if there was a potential risk. You can log in, understand exactly where that might have occurred, so you can see the user, which domain it was, and then help that user complete the or change their password off the back of it. Thank you very much. I know I've spoken a lot quite quickly there, so if there are any questions, feel free to let me know. If
there
not,
are.
right, perfect. Go for it. Let me have a look.
Questions.
Sorry. Let me try and go through.
I could read them out for you.
Go for it.
Someone's asked, is there a specific number of training courses that employees are required to complete, or it can be bespoke? And I think it'd be bespoke, isn't it, what you want them to do?
Yeah, definitely. Look, it's totally up to you as an organisation in terms of how many training modules you may need to send out, or if you have any particular compliance purposes. Again, we advise that monthly approach just to keep that regular update of training content there. But you have the ability, if you want to do it half-termly, and have that automatic course assignment turned on to make it more specific to those simulation engagements as well.
Thank you. Another one, how does Boxphish determine which teams different users are members of, i.e. syncing with AD, Entra, Google Groups, or is it a manual process? Sorry, I hope that makes more sense to you than me reading that out.
No, of course. Yeah, it is
Sorry,
that sync
Stuart.
with. Yeah, it is that sync with the AD, Entra, or Google. So those groups that they're in within that AD, let's say, they would filter automatically into there, so you can send it out to those specific groups.
Okay. And there's a last question regarding pricing, but Duncan, we can have a conversation about that if you're interested. There's a form that has been put in the chat, so if anyone's interested, put your details in there, and then Simon, Hobdell, or James will get in contact with you, and we can have that discussion on pricing, or anyone who's interested.
Definitely. And if anybody has any other questions once they've come out of today, feel free to let me know or Cheryl know, and we can hopefully look to maybe set up a call to just run through those or any questions you may have.
Of course, yes. We can maybe jump on and do a sort of more one-to-one if they want to ask those more school-related questions.
Definitely. Yeah, I know. I've gone through everything quite quickly, so yeah.
Hey, we gave you 45 minutes and you did it well. Thank you very much.
No worries at all.
There was really good insight, and actually, as a end user, it's interesting to know what those behind the scenes and are looking at, because you get reminders of who hasn't done what. It needs to be done, and for us, it's all part of our performance. If we don't do it, it affects our reviews. So,
Definitely.
And it does get embedded after a while. It just becomes second nature. But thank you very much, Ollie. Thank you, Jess. Do we have any more questions, or are we ready to end? If you don't, thank you very much for joining us. If you leave and then thought, I knew there was a question, just email us and we will come back to you. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for joining.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.